A single number, buried inside an SEC filing that almost nobody read on Wednesday afternoon, quietly explains everything strange about this weekend. Why 825 tech workers lost their badge today, like every other day of 2026. Why a grandmother in Fayette County, Georgia cannot water her tomatoes. Why your neighbor's power bill just jumped $18 a month. Why $917 million in crypto positions vaporized while you slept. Let me walk you through how deep the hole actually is. Here's what's strange. The morning newsletters from CNBC, TechCrunch, Bloomberg, they all front-loaded the wins this weekend. Gemini Omni generating avatars from any input. Google's search box getting its biggest upgrade in 25 years. AI mode just crossing 1 billion monthly users. Anthropic closing in on a $900 billion valuation, preparing for an IPO, posting its first quarterly operating profit. Read those sentences again. Notice what's missing? No one is telling you what it took to deliver those announcements. No one mentions who paid the bill, or how, or in what currency. That bill arrives in 3 places nobody links together. A laid-off engineer in Austin who already hit her LinkedIn message limit this week. A grandmother in Fayette County, Georgia, who can't water her tomatoes because the county told her to stop. A residential power bill in Loudoun County that jumped $18 a month for reasons the utility won't fully explain. None of those 3 stories trended on X this weekend. None made the Bloomberg push notification. All 3 are the real headline. And here's the twist you weren't supposed to notice. The same companies generating the cheerful weekend coverage have, since January, cut more than 113,000 jobs across roughly 179 companies. That's 825 tech workers losing their badge every single calendar day of 2026. Not because the work disappeared, because the money was redirected. How does a news cycle hide a 113,000-person layoff? Easy. You schedule the good news for Tuesdays and Wednesdays, the I/O keynotes, the model launches, the buyback announcements. You drop the bad news late Friday, after markets close, when nobody is reading. By Monday morning, the algorithm has already buried it under the next shiny thing. The cycle is not accidental. It is engineered. Look at the last 30 days. Meta confirmed 8,000 layoffs while quietly redirecting another 7,000 roles toward AI work, different titles, often different pay. Cloudflare cut roughly 1,100 people, 20% of its workforce, announced after the closing bell. CEO Matthew Prince called it an agentic AI-first operating model. That's corporate language for, the GPUs work cheaper than you do. The restructuring charge alone runs between $140 and $150 million. Meta, Amazon, Microsoft, and Alphabet have, together, committed roughly $725 billion in capital expenditure this year. 75% more than they spent in 2025. Almost every dollar earmarked for AI data centers, GPUs, and the long-term power contracts needed to feed them. Meta alone is on pace to spend over $100 billion on infrastructure in 2026. That is a small country's annual GDP dropped on warehouses full of silicon. That money has to come from somewhere. So when a layoff press release uses the phrase operational efficiency, translate it back into English. It means, we are redirecting your salary into a Blackwell rack we already pre-ordered, on a delivery slot that won't wait. The headlines call it transformation. The accounting calls it substitution. The executives call it inevitable. And the workers, 825 of them every single day of this year, call it Tuesday. And the substitution isn't even being done with software that's necessarily better at the job. Headcount is falling because cash and credit are being redirected to data centers, GPUs, and the power contracts to run them. Internal estimates leaked this month suggest many of the cut roles will be reposted as AI-related positions within 90 days. Different titles. Lower seniority. Often lower pay. The job didn't disappear. The line item moved. But it gets worse. Because while you were checking the Bitcoin chart this morning, which, by the way, just sliced through $75,000 and bled out $917 million in crypto futures liquidations in a single 24-hour stretch, with spot Bitcoin ETFs hemorrhaging another $1.25 billion across 6 straight days of outflows, something quieter happened to the physical world. The International Energy Agency just revised its 2026 forecast. Global data center electricity consumption will reach 1,100 terawatt-hours this year. That number matches Japan's entire national consumption. If data centers were a country, they would sit between Japan and Russia as the 5th largest energy user on Earth. Not the 5th largest tech sector. The 5th largest country by electricity demand alone. A single advanced AI query, the kind your kid uses to write a book report, consumes roughly 2.9 watt-hours. A traditional Google search burns 0.3. That's almost 10 times the power, multiplied by 1 billion daily users. The grid was never designed for this. Northern Virginia, the densest data center corridor on Earth, has effectively frozen new permits. Oracle alone has admitted to a $20 billion funding shortfall on its own build-out. And here's where it gets really interesting. 1,000 GPU H100 cluster runs an electricity bill between $50,000 and $317,000 per month, depending on which state hosts it. The spread is so large that hyperscalers now pick geography the way you'd pick an airline, by the cheapest cabin. The locals never voted on it. The towns just woke up one morning to discover a warehouse the size of 40 football fields had moved in next door. In the PJM grid region of the U.S., capacity payments for new data centers added roughly $9.3 billion to wholesale energy costs in a single market year. That trickles down to roughly $18 extra a month on residential electric bills in affected counties. Your power bill is, quietly, an AI subsidy. And environmental analysts at Fortune put the hidden U.S. health and pollution cost of data centers at $25 billion in the past year alone. Now the part the headlines refuse to print. 2 weeks ago, residents in Fayette County, Georgia, were ordered to stop watering their lawns. The county called it a routine conservation measure. It wasn't. The real cause was thirsty, anonymous infrastructure quietly siphoning what the town thought it owned. A data center campus 20 miles south of Atlanta had been drawing roughly 29 million gallons of water through 2 connections the county didn't even know existed. Officials are refusing to find the developer of the 6.2 million square foot facility. That number, 29 million gallons, taken silently, 15 months before anyone noticed, is the real story your feed didn't surface this weekend. A typical data center drinks 300,000 gallons of water a day, the demand of about 1,000 households. The big ones can hit 5 million gallons a day, the demand of a town of 50,000 people. Cooling load is projected to grow another 870% in the coming years. The grandmothers complaining about water pressure in Georgia are not the exception. They are the leading indicator of what's coming for everyone downstream. And remember the SEC filing I mentioned at the start? Here it is. SpaceX, in its IPO documents dropped last Wednesday afternoon, disclosed that Anthropic is paying it $1.25 billion per month for exclusive access to the Colossus and Colossus II supercomputers. That's $15 billion a year. $45 billion over the contract. For one customer on one cluster, with more than 200,000 NVIDIA GPUs locked away from the rest of the market for the next 3 years. That single number, $1.25 billion a month, for one customer, locking up 200,000 GPUs, explains the entire weekend. The layoffs at Meta and Cloudflare. The water disputes outside Atlanta. The $18 electric bill increase your neighbors haven't noticed yet. The Cheerful Gemini Omni demos. The Bitcoin liquidations as capital rotates toward compute. They are all downstream of one fact. Compute is now scarcer and more expensive than the talent it replaced. So, next time a headline tells you AI is changing the world, accept it. Then ask the second question the headline won't ask for you. Who is paying for that change, in dollars, in jobs, in kilowatt hours, in gallons? The answers are almost always in the footnotes, on page 70-something of an SEC filing nobody reads, in a county commission meeting nobody attends. Close the laptop tonight knowing this. The most important tech story of the weekend isn't a model release. It isn't an IPO valuation. It isn't a chip benchmark. It's a transfer of cost from the corporations spending the $725 billion onto the cities, the workers, and the watersheds quietly absorbing it. If this reframed how you read the news, hit like, subscribe for the stories your feed buries by Monday morning, share this with one person who only reads the headlines, and tell me in the comments, what did your news app not show you this weekend? Thanks for sticking through to the end. Your support means the world. Like, share, subscribe, 3 quick taps.